Hi.
Hello.
Well, it's exciting that we are about to start Hanukkah tomorrow night. And I find Hanukkah to be so interesting because I think it is a beautiful lesson for all of us. And that is that originally it was really about this group of people who wanted to. I already think like just the history of the Jewish people is so interesting that we ever wanted a central place to worship God, that we would have like this huge, elaborate place. And then when it was destroyed or when there was something that happened to it, we said, okay, well, let's try to figure this out. And that we would have some people who would say, we are going to fight so hard to be able to come back to this central place. And others would say, you know what, why don't we just adapt? But the story of Hanukkah is that we said at the time, we need this place. And so we had these fighters who said, we need to get back to the temple. No matter what King Antiochus does, like we have to get back. And so we have our story of Judah the Maccabee and his family who led the fighting, and that they were able to come back. And what I love is that we said, well, we weren't able to worship and we weren't able to celebrate Sukkot. So let's come back and let's celebrate late. And I love that they didn't even think about like, oh, this is something to memorialize. They said, no, we missed a holiday, so we have to come back and start it again. And then in time, people said, wait, but that was a miracle that happened. Like we actually were able to come in and rebuild and continue to. And so then, while they were still living in the land of Israel and able to celebrate in that way, they said, we're going to celebrate this because we were able to rededicate the temple. We'll call it Hanukkah. We'll celebrate here. And we're going to celebrate the miracle of this crazy victory militarily. And that's what they did. And then in time, we had to go to the diaspora. We were exiled, and they said, but we have to, if originally it was about that military victory and rededicating the temple and that was the miracle, we have to somehow keep the miracle in the diaspora. Like we have to keep this miracle alive. And then it became about the light. It became about this cruise of oil that was only supposed to last for one day, it lasting for 8 days. Strangely, the number of days of Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret. And then they were able to celebrate this festival of light. And then we're able in the diaspora or anywhere in the world to say, in these dark times, we need to bring the light. And I have to say that that's true always this time of year where we have such long nights and short days. And it's also true in the time of Corona where there's so much illness and darkness and death, unfortunately, around us, that we say we have to still bring the light. And so we're going to find ways to bring light. And I find it for myself in all times that I need this light to be brought. And I always look forward to this season. I look forward to this season also because so many different traditions have this notion of bringing light. And so I feel like in this like coldness of beginning of winter, we see light and warmth all around us. And I love that the Jews had the good sense to reframe this holiday to not only be talking about the miraculous victory, which was a miracle, but also to decide we need to bring light. So, and to reframe the holiday to be able to be one about light. And I had a question for you, which is, when's a time where you had to reframe something that happened to you so that you could wrest the miracle from it, that the lesson might have been different originally, but in time you were able to find a new lesson in it that brought more light to your life?
I hope I figure out my answer to it while I talk about the things that excited me so much about what you shared. One of the things I love so deeply about you, Rabbi Conover, is in all that you just taught us, about the history of Hanukkah, you could have gone on 20 tangents of an hour each for each of those points, and been so happy being the teacher for those 20 hours about that. And so I'm really, what this is further reminding me of is the quote from the Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai, who says, "Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares, don't stop. Go on beating and making musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first." This idea of moving it from that military victory to a thing of light, but continuing to reform it to be even more light and even more family and love, and all of this means we are that much many more steps from the military aspect of it, those beating swords into plowshares. And so the thing I will share about like reframing is that my family has had an annual Hanukkah party for 34 years now. And it's obviously not happening this year. And it's very upsetting to not have it. My father cooks for like 3.5 weeks just for this, and we have about a dozen different types of latkes. And the reframing it, we're having a Zoom gathering with music from Beth Schaefer and I believe Julie Silver as well. And this reframing is still this time to come together, to sing together, to bring in Hanukkah, to do Havdalah blessings as well. Just, you know, that constant reframing that reworking, that reforming, if you will, that we're doing right now in the midst of this pandemic just reminds me so clearly of what was happening back then. Like, we got something new, we got to figure it out. Let's go forward with an eye towards looking back as well. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about today.
That's beautiful. And your Hanukkah parties, your virtual Hanukkah party sounds awesome. That's amazing that you're figuring out a way to do that. Okay, I can't remember if I've already spoken about this in a clergy video, and I know that I'll speak about it again. So I think this is just the rabbinic pattern of repeating yourself. But I learned a huge lesson. So when you finish being a rabbi, you're ordained, and it's usually this like enormous in-person ceremony. It's many hours with lots of, I don't know, bells and whistles and speakers and that kind of thing. And when I was ordained in the pandemic in my parents' living room, I was very, very disappointed by that. And my whole class was very disappointed, and it felt like this real loss. But I really felt like it taught me a huge lesson about the Jewish calendar that I keep carrying with me throughout the pandemic and throughout doing holidays in different ways, which is that the Jewish calendar is fixed. Like, it's the way we celebrate, the time matters, and the time is holy. And the fact that Hanukkah happens in winter means that Hanukkah is supposed to happen in winter. Like, we can't say, you know, we're really sad that Hanukkah is virtual this year, so we're just going to celebrate it in the springtime. And so there's something about the permanence of the seasons and the holidays that means we're supposed to be figuring out ways to celebrate in that moment, no matter what else is happening in the world or in our lives. And so that was a big reframe for me of having this big moment that was supposed to be a certain way but couldn't be that way. But then I realized that it was just about the time that it was supposed to happen as it was about like the ritual. And that was the right time to be ordained, even if it was in my parents' living room on a computer. So that was my big pandemic reframe.
Oh, I love the reframes. And I also love that our people said that with Sukkot, like, look, we can't do it, but we'll delay it. So that there were always these times where they would delay it and then do it. And then also, but what I love about that too is that then it created the second holiday. And so I love that sometimes we say, you know what, the calendar is what it is, and we're going to do what we have to do. And other times we say, we're going to delay it, or we're going to do something different with it. And so I love that you brought in that Yud Amachai, taking that quote from Isaiah and then saying, no, we're going to do even more with it. We're not just going to beat our weapons into plowshares. We're going to beat the plowshares into musical instruments. And so we're going to continue to adapt. And then there are times where we're going to say, you know what, here we are. There's still Hanukkah this year. We've got to figure out a different way to do it. We still have, thank God, an ordination. We're so grateful that you are Rabbi Rena Singer and that you're part of Temple Sholem, and that they said, you know what, we still have to do this. We'll figure out another way to do it. And I love that no matter how we do this, I mean, even right now, that we're having this conversation on Zoom versus in person, is that we're still able to connect in these ways, and we're still able to bring more light in this season. So thank you so much. And Chag Orim Sameach. Have a happy Hanukkah. Chag Sameach, Hanukkah Sameach.